I'm Wiz, this is Means, and we're going to talk a little bit tonight about Narcissistic Personality Disorder. So, I know there are a lot of thoughts kind of going around about what narcissistic people look like, what they do, how they act, what position or role that they typically fill. So, I would like to hear from you as a layman, so to speak. What are your thoughts on narcissistic people, or people who you may identify as a narcissistic person?
Well, when I think about narcissism, I think of like the ancient story, but Narcissus. And I remember when I used to watch wrestling back in the day, they had the Narcissus. What wrestler was Lex Luger? He was the Narcissus for a while. He had white Speedo or whatever they call it, trunks. And he was this guy who was like all into himself. When I think about narcissists, it's kind of like a God complex. Like, they feel like they just have this certain view of themselves and how special they are, but you don't really see it themselves. It's not like you see them standing in the mirror all day. It's not like they're extremely vain or anything. They could be, but it's more so kind of the way they treat each other. It's just everybody else is kind of a peasant, or they're not really considerate, or other people just kind of are irrelevant. They're just trying to achieve whatever their goals are.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of better than type of attitude, a sense of entitlement maybe. So, yeah, I mean, that's a similar vein to how, as clinicians, you would identify someone that has a narcissistic personality disorder. Now, in order for you to have a personality disorder, it's something that has to be consistent for a period of time. So, there are people who may demonstrate narcissistic characteristics in their personality, but they may not have a narcissistic personality disorder. So, I guess just to kind of talk a little bit more about it, again, it's long-standing, but with narcissism, there's egocentrism that exists. So that's someone who is very focused on themselves, pushing themselves above other people, like you see, kind of looking down on people, almost like a God complex. We don't necessarily identify it exactly as a God complex though, but just someone who has a huge sense of entitlement. And then there's also a need for power. So they want to be in a position of power. Have you ever felt like you've worked anywhere where any of your bosses have either demonstrated narcissistic characteristics, or that you would go as far as to say, yes, this person has narcissistic personality disorder?
No.
Okay.
I mean, but the thing is about bosses, it's kind of like, I think some of those stereotypical traits are things that you kind of expect out of somebody who has achieved a certain status. I don't know, it might be hard to recognize in somebody who's already your superior, because you're kind of just like, well, I mean, that's what people do when they have people who are subject to their wishes and who are like under them.
So do you think that someone who don't possess these types of characteristics, you feel like they wouldn't make a good boss? Or like...
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it might be hard to recognize. I mean, some of those things are expected. Like some of the things that you listed, somebody who wants power, somebody who has a sense of entitlement. I mean, those are kind of almost typical, kind of across the board characteristics we see in someone who is in a management type of position, who falls a little higher in the hierarchy. I mean, they have certain expectations of what comes along with that position. Now, I mean, I see over the course of my career, as I've gone from being kind of like an underling to more of a peer, it's changed, and I think some of that is generational as well as just me getting up in the workforce.
Yeah, and I think another one of the important characteristics, or a couple of the other important characteristics to make a note of, is that someone who has narcissistic personality disorder is someone who they require admiration as well. And so I feel like sometimes there are some bosses that can have a lot of these narcissistic type personality traits, And then I feel like I actually have had a couple of bosses who, believe it or not, in the world of counseling, there are bosses who they value themselves and their thought process so much. It's very grandiose. They expect people to kind of like fall to whatever their thoughts are because they just think that their thoughts are very superior mindset. It's very interesting, but I guess if we're not thinking about it from like a boss perspective, do you have any friends or any acquaintances that you would say have narcissistic characteristics, or someone that you think you would go as far as to say, you know what, yes, that person has narcissistic personality disorder?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easier to recognize in peers and maybe people who fall under you on say a work organizational chart. And then of course friends and acquaintances. So it's like in this environment you have nothing to prove. This is just the way you are.
I think it is pretty easy to identify those types of characteristics in peers. What about partners, people that you dated? Have you ever if you've ever dated someone that has those type of traits, or have those types of traits, or if you feel like you would say that yes, that person has a narcissistic personality disorder, like how did you manage dating that person?
I haven't. I kind of don't think we'd get that far if that's kind of the person that they were. I mean, I think that I have a low tolerance for people who are not really considerate, like at all. Like it's just always their way. Now I've seen it in other people. I mean, you know, everybody has that friend who's with that person, and everybody is like, look, just get rid of them. But then they can't, and then they keep always telling their sob story to the group, and everybody's like, look, I don't want to hear no more, all right? You're gonna go back no matter what, so stop complaining about it. But yeah, it's easy to see when it's somebody else, I think. All right, so as a clinician, I mean, is there like a concise statement you can give that says that generally this is what we consider to be a person who is narcissistic? Because, I mean, you know, look, we got all this information these days. Everybody's an expert. They gave y'all Wikipedia. Now everybody knows everything now. People are all over social media saying this person's a narcissist, this person's a narcissist. I mean, as a professional, like, what would you just a concise way that you say, you know, this is what we view it as in the clinical world, and in the clinical sense?
It's so hard to just say it's in one quick sentence.
Okay. So, how would you, as an individual, start to recognize that perhaps this person is a person who has this condition? Perhaps, obviously you can't diagnose, but how would you start to recognize it as a friend, a peer, a partner, or even a parent?
So the individual would have had a long-standing, deeply ingrained pattern of needing admiration, needing to be in high power, needing to belittle other people, or I would say have little empathy for other people. If you see those types of characteristics being repeated over and over again, regardless of the situation and regardless of who the person is in contact with, then this is something that I would say is deeply rooted and is long-standing. So the emphasis on a personality disorder is not just something that happens in one moment here and then 6 months down the road something else happens in another moment there. It's something that is constantly, consistently happening because it's who that person is.
So how would you approach a therapeutic relationship with somebody or a client who you have diagnosed as a narcissist? I mean, is there any use for therapy, or is it a condition that can be like a condition that can be
work with people that have personality disorders because for me and the way that I operate as a clinician, the person first has to identify that they have an issue. Someone with a personality disorder, it's going to be a long time before they even admit that there's an issue that even needs to be addressed. So someone with a narcissistic personality disorder, there's nothing that someone like me that is kind of youngish, you know, I'm getting older now, but back then when I dealt with a whole lot of clients in the community type of setting, dealing with people with antisocial personality disorder, a borderline personality disorder, oh my gosh. It's just a lot to get them even to the point where they even recognize it as an issue. And for me, the type of clients that I attract now are generally people who know that there's something that's going on that they need assistance with and they need support with. And so I'm kind of there to kind of help them weed through, you know, the issues, sift through the issues, figure out what the issues are. Once we get them on the table, then we can work from there. Someone with a personality disorder, they wouldn't, you know.
On the table? It sounds like it's you're dissecting a frog or something.
Well, the reality of therapy is you want to address the issues and you create a treatment plan so that you can effectively address the issues and the problems that were presented in the initial session. But again, with the personality disorder, or someone who's diagnosed with a long-standing personality disorder, it's difficult to have a starting point, is what I'm saying. If they come in and they're like, hey, I know I have an issue, at least that's a start. And I've had that where they come in and they know that something's wrong. Typically, what they come in for is to mention that their spouse at home has an issue and they're trying to figure out how to deal with their spouse. And I'm like, it's you, no, it's you. You're the problem. But I mean, you know, it's always difficult to hear, even myself as a clinician and as a spouse, you know, for me to say, well, Ways, you do this. I'm like, no, I don't do that. You know, no one wants to hear, you know, about the things that they do that aren't right. So as a clinician, having to be, you know, the spouse in that case saying, well, you know, it's really actually you're the issue. It's always difficult to kind of maneuver around those situations. But as a professional and knowing what it is something that has to be done. And if I feel like it's something that's out of the scope of my practice, then I would refer the person out.
Okay.
So, thank you guys for watching this video. I know we kind of went through a lot. This was a very psychological type of video, but I know that many of you are out there dealing with people who are narcissistic or maybe have narcissistic characteristics. So we wanted to just give you an idea of what those things look like in the event that you are looking to get into business with someone, or looking to get into some type of relationship with someone and you see certain things. It's important to always make note of whatever those red flags are and see if it's something that you would be able to manage. Any last words?
And definitely, Ways here is taking requests on certain conditions. If there's anything you want to see, you want profiled, then certainly drop it down in the comments. And we'll certainly try to get to it. I mean, I think here we're all about like informing and we're trying to dispel myths, because there's a lot of myths, lots of misinformation, lots of partial truths and stuff like that. And we really want to set the record straight. So, yeah, definitely just let us know if there's anything you want to see.
All right. Thanks so much for watching.
So, yeah.
Bye.